When Allah writes your return, no rumor, no rival, and no resistance can rewrite it. They thought they buried you, but they didn't realize you were a seed. They plotted, they mocked, they whispered your name in rooms you were never invited to, yet your name echoed louder than theirs ever could. Because when Allah chooses someone, no amount of envy, no army of liars, no mountain of schemes can erase what's written by the divine pen. You didn't fight back for revenge. You fought back to reclaim your soul. You didn't rise to prove your worth. You rose because Allah said, "Be," and the world had no choice but to witness it. Every insult they threw became the bricks of your foundation. Every betrayal became the wind beneath your elevation. They talked because they saw what they couldn't destroy. A believer who fought through pain, silence, and storms with nothing but Iman as armor. And now, look at you. The same people who doubted you are forced to discuss you. You had them all talking, not because you begged for attention, but because your survival became a sermon. Your victory became their reminder that Allah never abandons His chosen ones. You didn't just make a comeback, you made history. So today, let's uncover 6 powerful lessons that prove why your battle wasn't just personal, it was divine, and why every time they thought they defeated you, Allah was secretly writing the next chapter of your legacy. There are moments in the life of every chosen soul when the world looks at them and says, "It's over." They laugh, they whisper, and they walk away believing your silence means defeat. But what they don't understand is that when Allah loves someone, He hides them before He honors them. When He wants to elevate you, He first isolates you. And when He's about to write your greatest chapter, He allows others to think the book is closed. You see, they didn't write you off because they knew the truth. They wrote you off because your light exposed what they tried to hide. You became a mirror that revealed their jealousy, their hypocrisy, and their fear of your potential. So Allah, in His infinite wisdom, let them underestimate you, because He wanted your rise to be something no one could take credit for but Him. Think of Yusuf, peace be upon him. His own brothers conspired against him, throwing him into a dark well, thinking they had erased his destiny. But they didn't know that the well was the beginning of his royal chapter. They thought they buried him, yet they were unknowingly helping Allah plant him. The same hands that betrayed him became instruments in the fulfillment of his dream. And that's exactly what happened to you. Those who betrayed you, mocked you, and doubted you only pushed you closer to Allah. You found peace not in people, but in prayer. You learned that rejection was protection, and what they called your ending was simply Allah saying, "Now my servant walks with me alone." They wrote you off when your name didn't appear in their rooms, when your dreams didn't unfold on their timeline, when your success didn't match their definitions. But they forgot. You were never written by human ink. Your story was carved by the kalam that writes destiny itself. They measured your potential with worldly eyes, not realizing you were chosen for something otherworldly. While they mocked, you evolved. While they spoke, you healed. While they tried to erase you, Allah was rewriting you with power, grace, and divine purpose. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, "Know that what missed you was never meant for you, and what reached you could never have missed you." So when they turned their backs, Allah turned your face toward Him. Your setbacks were not proof that you were forgotten. They were divine pauses meant to purify your heart. Because before Allah uses someone, He empties them. He strips away attachments, illusions, and pride. He allows everything false to fall apart so that when the real blessing arrives, you know exactly who to thank. That's why when they said, "You'll never recover," Allah smiled upon you and whispered, "Watch how I restore." And when He restored you, He didn't just put you back where you were, He took you where they could never reach. You became the living definition of the verse. And they planned, but Allah planned, and Allah is the best of planners. Surah Al-Imran 354. So don't resent those who doubted you. They were necessary for your unveiling. Their disbelief became the soil that grew your faith. Their mockery became the motivation that drove you closer to sincerity. Every tongue that cursed you unknowingly invoked a prayer in your favor. Every lie spoken against you became a seed of truth that Allah would one day water. Because the chosen ones are not defined by who leaves them. They are defined by who stays with them when everyone else walks away. And when Allah stays, you lack nothing. You were never finished. You were just being refined. You were never forgotten. You were being prepared. They wrote you off, but they were never the authors. The pen is still in the hand of the Almighty, and your story is far from over. Allah is still writing chapters that will silence those who once laughed. They thought your quiet meant defeat, but it was just your season of divine construction. And when Allah finally unveiled what He was building within you, the same people who walked away had no choice but to talk. Because what Allah writes, no human can erase. There comes a moment when the chosen one realizes that not every battle is fought with fists, and not every victory is won with noise. The strongest warriors of Allah are not those who shout the loudest. They are those who remain silent while trusting the loudest power in existence, the will of Allah. When the world turned against you, you didn't retaliate with rage. You turned your face toward the heavens and said, Hasbi Allahu wa ni'ma al-wakil. Allah is sufficient for me, and He is the best disposer of affairs. You didn't fight with vengeance, you fought with vision, because you understood that when Allah is on your side, patience becomes your sword, and silence becomes your shield. While others sought revenge to prove themselves, you sought Allah to purify yourself, and that's what made you unstoppable. Every insult they hurled at you, every attempt to break your spirit, every scheme to ruin your peace, you could have responded with the same venom. But instead you chose saber. You chose mercy over malice, prayer over pride. You fought back not by lowering yourself to their level, but by rising to Allah's standards. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, "The strong person is not the one who can wrestle another, but the one who controls himself in anger." You lived that hadith without realizing it. Your strength wasn't in how loud you could respond. It was in how quietly you endured. They expected you to explode, to crumble, to fight dirty, but you disarmed them with grace, because nothing confuses the devil more than a believer who responds to pain with praise. And make no mistake, Allah saw every tear you hid, every prayer you whispered instead of cursing back. The angels recorded not your anger, but your restraint. You didn't need to defend yourself, because Allah was already doing that on a higher level. You fought with faith, and faith doesn't need witnesses. It needs consistency. Every time you said, "Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un," you surrendered your pain to the one who never loses a case. You weren't weak for staying calm. You were wise enough to let Allah fight for you. And He did, slowly, quietly, perfectly. He exposed the lies, humbled the arrogant, and lifted you without you having to lift a finger. Because when you stand still in obedience, Allah moves the universe in your favor. Remember how Musa, peace be upon him, stood before the Red Sea with an army behind him and an impossible path ahead. The people panicked, but he said with unshakable certainty, "Indeed, my Lord is with me, and He will guide me." That's the faith you carried. The fury of others could not drown your calm, because your trust was not in outcomes. It was in Allah. Your battles were not about proving your worth to people. They were about proving your devotion to the one who chose you. That's why your victories are pure, because they weren't fueled by ego. They were built on sincerity. You didn't fight for revenge. You fought for redemption. You didn't fight to show your power. You fought to show Allah's mercy. And now the same people who mocked your patience are forced to admit your strength. They called your calmness weakness, not realizing it was divine discipline. They mistook your silence for surrender, not realizing it was strategy. For the chosen ones, silence is not absence. It's alignment with divine timing. You knew your moment would come, and when it did, you didn't have to shout. Allah spoke for you through results. The same people who tried to destroy you now see that the one who fights with fury wins battles. But the one who fights with faith makes history. So never feel ashamed of how you handled your storms. You could have become bitter, but you became better. You could have cursed your enemies, but you prayed for your deliverance. And Allah heard you. He took your quiet prayers and turned them into thunder. He took your restraint and made it your armor. You are living proof that the believer's greatest revenge is success born out of patience. You fought back with faith, and that's why your story will be remembered as victory, not vengeance. Every chosen one carries a mark, not of privilege but of pain. Pain is the ink Allah uses to write the stories of His beloved servants. It's the hidden language of divine preparation, the unseen classroom where your soul learns its purpose. You see, the world thought your pain meant punishment, but Allah knew it meant prophecy. Your tears were not random. They were revelations in disguise. Every heartbreak, every betrayal, every season of loneliness was Allah whispering, "You are one of my chosen ones, and this is the price of being trusted with my light." Because before Allah displays His servant, He disciplines them. Before He crowns you, He tests you in ways no one else will ever understand. Look at every prophet who walked this earth. Not one was chosen without being broken first. Yusuf, peace be upon him, was thrown into a well, sold as a slave, imprisoned without reason, yet his suffering became the path to rulership. Musa, peace be upon him, was cast into the river as an infant, exiled from his home, and faced Pharaoh's wrath. Yet his pain became the means through which an entire nation was freed. Even our beloved prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, the most honored of creation, was orphaned, mocked, and driven out of his city. Yet through every wound, Allah was writing proof of His promise. And that's exactly what He did with you. Your pain was not a setback. It was a sign that your destiny carried divine fingerprints. People saw your struggle and thought you were cursed. They didn't realize you were chosen. They saw your breakdowns, but they couldn't see your breakthroughs being built behind the scenes. Allah was sculpting your character through fire, because only those who have been burnt by life can carry the warmth that heals others. Your pain became your pulpit. It taught you compassion, patience, humility, and wisdom that no book or teacher could ever give. When you cried at night, thinking no one understood, the angels were recording your endurance as testimony. Every tear you shed became a verse written in the language of sincerity, and Allah never lets sincerity go to waste. Pain is not proof that Allah has abandoned you. It is proof that He is near. He said in the Quran, "Indeed, Allah is with the patient." Surah Al-Baqarah 2:153. Your loneliness was His companionship. Your weakness was His invitation to rely completely on Him. He allowed the world to reject you so that you could learn what it means to be truly accepted by Him alone. That's why, when you look back, you realize your lowest points were your holiest moments. That's when your du'as were raw, your heart was sincere, your faith was alive. That's when you stopped performing for people and started praying for purpose. Your pain became the evidence that Allah still chooses the unlikely. Because no one expected you to rise again, yet here you are, stronger, wiser, and more anchored in faith. You became a walking ayah, a living reminder that Allah turns wounds into wisdom and misery into miracles. People who once pitied you now study your resilience, because your story carries the scent of divine intervention. You didn't just survive, you were transformed. You didn't just recover, you were reborn. Allah used your suffering as a bridge to your soul's awakening. What looked like destruction was actually construction. What felt like loss was training for leadership. Your pain wasn't random, it was rehearsed by destiny. So now when people ask how you endured it all, you can say with conviction, because Allah never left me. Every scar on your heart is a reminder that you were chosen for something sacred. They didn't see your silent battles, your nights of sujood soaked in tears, your prayers that kept you alive when logic said you'd collapse. But Allah saw, and that's all that ever mattered. Your pain became His proof. Proof that He still raises the broken to show His mercy, that He still honors the patient to show His justice, and that He still turns victims into victors to show His power. You are not the story of suffering. You are the story of survival written by the Divine Himself. So wear your pain with pride. It is not your shame. It is your signature. It's the proof that you were chosen not for comfort, but for calling. Allah didn't let that pain touch you to destroy you. He let it pass through you to transform you. And now you are living evidence that the chosen ones are not defined by what they endure, but by how Allah uses their endurance to awaken faith in others. When Allah chooses you, He doesn't need to promote you. He allows your enemies to do it for you. The irony of divine justice is that sometimes the very mouths that tried to ruin you become the megaphones that spread your name. What they meant for your humiliation became the seed of your elevation. Their gossip carried your story into places your presence never could. And while they thought they were staining your reputation, Allah was polishing your legacy. Because when He loves someone, He uses everything, even the whispers of your enemies, to serve His plan. You didn't need publicity, you needed patience. And Allah used their noise to make your silence heard across the earth. They gathered to talk about you, thinking their words had power. But they forgot. Allah is Al-Mu'iz and Al-Mudil, the one who gives honor and the one who strips it away. When He honors you, no rumor can reduce you. When He protects your name, no slander can erase it. You became a living lesson that truth doesn't need to shout. It just needs to stand. They thought gossip would bury you, but it became the wind that lifted your story higher. Just like Yusuf, peace be upon him, when he was accused of sin by those who envied him, it wasn't silence that destroyed the lies. It was Allah's timing that revealed the truth. The same people who lied about him were forced to witness his vindication. And in the end, his purity became known not through explanation, but through elevation. The chosen ones are not meant to defend themselves in every room where their name is mentioned. Allah defends them better than they ever could. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, endured years of slander. They called him a magician, a liar, a madman. Yet every word they used to discredit him only made his name echo louder through time. His enemies wanted to erase him. Now his name is written on every tongue that calls the adhan. Subhanallah, this is how Allah operates. He turns insults into invitations, gossip into growth, and mockery into movement. You were not meant to argue your innocence. You were meant to let Allah prove it in ways that silence every critic. And think of it, their obsession with you was never about you. It was about what Allah placed inside you. They saw something divine they could not understand, so they tried to destroy it. But you can't destroy what's protected by the King of the Heavens. So while they were busy fabricating stories, Allah was writing history. While they spread lies behind closed doors, Allah was opening doors they could never close. Every rumor became a rope they hung themselves with. And every time your name passed through their tongues, it only reminded the world that you existed for something greater. Because when Allah wants people to notice His servant, He uses even the tongues of enemies to announce it. You see, gossip is the tax the chosen ones pay for favor. If Allah has elevated you, people will speak, not because you did something wrong, but because you did something right. Envy cannot remain silent when light enters the room. They talked because they couldn't touch what Allah protected. They whispered because your peace was louder than their noise. Yet through all of it, you stayed calm. You didn't chase rumors, you chased your purpose. You didn't waste time explaining, you let time explain for you. That's the secret of divine vindication. Allah doesn't just defend His chosen ones. He honors them so loudly that even their enemies are forced to respect them. Now look at how it all turned out. The very people who tried to damage your image became part of your testimony. The ones who mocked your downfall are now spectators to your rise. You didn't need revenge. You needed remembrance. And Allah remembered you in front of those who forgot you. You see, gossip fades, but divine truth echoes forever. And now those who slandered you are haunted by the realization that their words became your advertisement. You became a story they can't stop repeating, not because they admire you, but because Allah ordained that they would keep your name alive while your deeds kept you favored. So let them talk, let them spread, let them whisper your name into rooms you've never stepped in, because Allah knows how to turn enemies into marketers and slander into spotlight. You don't need to fight for exposure when the King of Kings writes your script. He will make your name travel far, not through fame, but through faith. You didn't rise because they loved you. You rose because Allah loved you enough to let their hatred become your ladder. Remember this, chosen one. When the world talks about you, it's only because heaven has already announced you. When the storm came, you didn't scream for sympathy. You stood with silence and saber. You didn't beg for validation. You waited for vindication from the only one whose opinion matters. The world wanted to see you crumble, but you chose composure over chaos. Because the chosen ones know dignity in trial is more powerful than noise in triumph. History doesn't remember those who retaliate in anger. It remembers those who endure with grace. Allah never forgets a servant who carries pain with patience and honor. And you, chosen one, carried your test like a crown, even when it felt like a cross. You bore it without losing your manners before your Lord. You wept in sujud, not in front of spectators. You hid your wounds beneath worship, and that's why Allah raised you, because He saw your restraint when no one else did. Dignity is not silence born from fear, it's silence born from faith. You could have exposed your enemies, but you chose to expose your heart to Allah instead. You could have cursed those who wronged you, but you whispered, Ya Allah, you see what they do. That's what separates the chosen from the common. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, endured years of mockery, exile, and betrayal. Yet he never lost his composure. When the people of Ta'if threw stones at him, he raised his hands not for revenge, but for their forgiveness. That's prophetic dignity, to remain soft when the world tries to harden you. And when Allah saw that, He sent Jibreel, peace be upon him, not to destroy His enemies, but to comfort His beloved. That is how Allah honors those who endure with grace, not with immediate revenge, but with eternal remembrance. And this is your story too. You endured humiliation that would have broken most people. They tried to provoke you, to make you react, to drag you into their pit of pettiness, but you refused. You stood tall in silence, trusting that Allah sees what's hidden. That silence was not weakness, it was worship. Because silence in the face of injustice is not surrender when your heart is anchored in divine justice. You knew that every insult was being recorded, not by human hands, but by angels who never forget. You knew that every time you swallowed your anger, Allah was elevating your rank. You were fighting a war not with people, but with your own ego. And victory over the ego is greater than victory over any enemy. History remembers those who walk away from battlefields they could have dominated, simply because they feared losing Allah in the process. That's you. You could have proven them wrong with words, but you chose to let Allah prove it through time. You could have made noise, but you let your actions speak louder. The Quran says, "And the servants of the Most Merciful are those who walk upon the earth humbly, and when the ignorant address them, they say peace." Surah Al-Furqan 25:63. You became that verse, a living embodiment of mercy in the face of mockery. You didn't need to clap back. You needed to stay clean. And you did. Now look how Allah has turned the tables. Those who once looked down on you now look up to you in awe. Those who ridiculed you are now silenced by the respect Allah placed in the hearts of others for you. Because honor that comes from Allah cannot be revoked by tongues of envy. The same people who laughed at your patience are now living proof that Allah does not forget those who endure with dignity. You see, vengeance creates temporary victory, but dignity creates eternal legacy, and your legacy will outlive their noise. Your name will be remembered not for how loud you shouted, but for how gracefully you waited. So remember, chosen one, every time you chose patience over pride, Allah was watching. Every time you chose silence over scandal, He was writing your reward. You didn't just survive, you became a reflection of divine restraint. You didn't just endure, you represented Allah's beauty through your composure. When others fell into rage, you rose through remembrance, and now your story stands as proof. History forgets the aggressors, but it forever honors the ones who endured with dignity. Because Allah Himself promised, "Indeed, Allah is with those who are patient." Surah Al-Baqarah 2153. And when Allah is with you, even silence becomes a victory written in eternity. They tried everything to put you out. They gossiped, plotted, lied, twisted, and attacked. But what they didn't know was that the fire they were trying to kill wasn't man-made. It was divine. It was a flame lit by Allah Himself, the same flame that guided Prophet Musa, peace be upon him, through the darkness of the desert, the same light that shone in the chest of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, when the world conspired against him. You are not burning from rage, you are burning from revelation. You are a fire that doesn't destroy, you purify. They thought their betrayal would break you, but Allah used it to make you burn brighter. You became the fire they couldn't extinguish, because your heat was not fueled by hate, but by faith. Every insult they threw at you was meant to dim your light, but it only fed your flame. Every attempt to shame you only strengthened your spirit. The more they mocked, the more Allah refined you. The more they tried to contain you, the more He expanded you. That's what happens when a soul belongs to Allah. No amount of darkness can smother divine light. The Quran says, "They want to extinguish the light of Allah with their mouths, but Allah will perfect His light, even if the disbelievers hate it." Surah As-Saf 61:8. That verse isn't just about revelation. It's about you too, chosen one. Because your endurance, your persistence, your refusal to bow to falsehood, that's Allah's light shining through you, and no human being has the power to turn off what Allah Himself has turned on. You see, the chosen ones are never extinguished. They are transformed. Fire doesn't only burn, it also refines gold. Allah put you in the fire not to destroy you, but to reveal your purity. Every trial, every betrayal, every disappointment, it was heat designed to extract the impurities of your soul, to make your faith unshakable. That's why your enemies got confused. They thought you'd crumble, but you came back stronger. They thought you'd lose yourself, but you found Allah deeper within yourself. That's the mystery of divine resilience. The more they try to harm you, the more you glow. Because the chosen ones don't run from fire, they become it. Their presence burns falsehood, their truth exposes lies, and their patience consumes evil silently until justice manifests. The story of Ibrahim, peace be upon him, is your story too. When the people threw him into the fire, They thought it would be the end. But Allah said, "O fire, be coolness and safety for Ibrahim." Surah Al-Anbiya 21:69. That's what Allah did for you. He turned your fire into safety. The same heat meant to destroy you became your protection. The same pain meant to burn you became your purification. That's how Allah defends His chosen servants. Not by removing the fire, but by commanding it to obey Him. And that's why you're still standing, because your flame listens to Allah, not to your enemies. They threw dirt on your name, but that dirt only became the soil where your light took deeper root. And now, look what's happening. The same people who mocked your passion are now drawn to your glow. The same ones who whispered against you are now whispering your name with awe. They can't understand it, because you don't burn out like others. That's the secret of divine energy. It doesn't rely on applause, validation, or numbers. It comes from dhikr. It comes from sujood at 3 a.m. It comes from the moments you cried alone saying, "Ya Allah, I can't, but you can." Those whispers became fuel for your flame. And now that flame walks with you, in your eyes, your voice, your presence. People feel it without knowing why. Because divine fire is not seen, it's felt. You became dangerous to falsehood not by aggression, but by authenticity. You didn't have to shout, you just had to be. Your light exposed what was fake without saying a word. That's why people couldn't stay around you for long. The ones built on lies feel suffocated around truth. You became a mirror they couldn't face. They tried to label you as arrogant, but your confidence was simply conviction. You knew who lit your fire, and that knowledge made you unstoppable. You were never meant to blend in. You were meant to blaze through the darkness until others remembered what divine strength looks like. Because when Allah chooses someone, He makes them both light and fire, gentle enough to guide, strong enough to burn deception. So, chosen one, never apologize for the fire Allah placed in you. Don't dim yourself to comfort those who prefer darkness. Don't shrink your presence to fit rooms that can't handle your heat. You are not here to be liked. You are here to ignite hearts back toward Allah. Let them talk. Let them plot. Let them try. Every attempt to extinguish you will only remind them that you were never lit by them in the first place. Your flame belongs to the one who said, "Be," and it was. And as long as He wills it, your fire will keep spreading, your light will keep piercing, and your name will keep echoing in places your feet haven't even touched yet. Because when Allah fuels your spirit, you don't just survive, you burn through history. So now, chosen one, look at you. The same world that once whispered your downfall now trembles at the sound of your silence. You didn't just make noise, you made history. Every scar became a verse of divine proof. Every loss became a seed of legacy. You fought back not with fists, but with faith. You didn't curse your trials. You conversed with your Lord. And in that conversation, Allah rewrote your story from victim to victor, from forgotten to favored. You didn't rise because they apologized. You rose because Allah authorized it, and that's the kind of rise no enemy can reverse. Let them talk. Let them analyze. Let them twist the story. You don't have to defend what Allah Himself has already defined. Your story is sealed with divine ink. You are living proof that patience is the loudest revenge and tawakkul is the sharpest weapon. The same mouths that mocked your downfall will one day speak your name with respect, because Allah doesn't just redeem, He reverses. And when He reverses, He does it in a way that leaves no doubt who was truly in control all along. So keep walking, keep glowing, keep rising in silence while your enemies burn in confusion. The world saw your fall, but heaven witnessed your rise. And as the dust settles, remember, your story isn't meant to be just remembered, it's meant to remind. Remind others that when Allah is your ally, even rock bottom becomes a runway. You didn't just come back stronger, you came back chosen, crowned, and written into history by the decree of the Most High. Because you were never the underdog, you were the hidden weapon, the one Allah kept in the shadows until the appointed time. And now, as your light breaks through the ruins, let every believer who watches your rise know this truth. Those who walk with Allah never make a comeback. They make eternity remember their name.